Yeah, we are back with another episode, and yeah, we're chatting over coffee and whatever that is. I don't know exactly what that
Always blend with peach. Yeah, it's a peach. Shot of peach.
Oh.
Shot of peach. What?
Whatever that is. Syrup.
Tea?
Yeah, tea.
Oh, that's gross.
You know, like,
Sorry. So like I don't like coffee really. That's why I get like super sugary things. And I hate tea even more.
I love black coffee. And
That's
I drink.
Wait, I got a real quick question.
Okay.
So Maddie, would you consider yourself a coffee addict?
Absolutely.
Like,
Proudly.
are you one of those people in the morning, you're I haven't ever really seen you grumpy, but you're grumpy and you would just be like, oh, sorry, haven't had my morning coffee.
Definitely.
Really?
Wow.
But
all right, we're going to take a moment just to pray over her real quick.
Yes,
Lord,
yes.
deliver her from this.
I make coffee right away in the morning, pour over coffee in my room, grind the beans. Yeah. So
That's
I
just
don't.
a beautiful moment for you.
Yeah, it's sacred. It's really sacred.
She consecrated that.
Yeah, absolutely.
She made that way better than me.
Oh my gosh. No, yeah, Coffee and Calling. We're here with Maddie. And I like to make the joke that we have our first pig on air because
I'm a snorter.
No, Maddie, will you just give a little introduction to yourself so
Yeah.
people know a little bit about you?
So I'm Maddie MacKinnon. I was born in Indianapolis, but raised in Mexico City. So I'm Latina. I come from a Mexican family. Yeah, super fun.
Oh, qué bueno.
Super fun.
Qué bueno.
Super fun. I moved back to Indianapolis when I was 10, and then moved to Costa Rica. So kind of my life has all been like all over the place. I would consider home to be Mexico and Indianapolis. So kind of my soul is in both worlds. And then, yeah, I was homeschooled all the way through, which is a really important part of my story because, yeah, and it's something not a lot of people know about me. But I just super like big heart for family and for kind of like hands-on learning and a lot of, what I love to do is very like hands-on ministry, which we can get into later. But a lot of that was birthed out of just the surplus of time that we had at home and like not needing to go into a school building. So then I was, senior in high school, applying to like 10 different colleges. First, I'm the oldest of 5 kids. So like being the oldest, parents are like, how do we, especially when you're homeschooled, like there's no school counselor to like help you figure out what school you're going to go to, Yeah. So you're just kind of figuring it out on your own.
You are the guinea pig.
Yeah, for sure. Guinea pig, absolutely, all day. But yeah, and then the Lord opened an opportunity. Freshman year of high school, I'd actually committed to going to school and not going into debt. So whichever school I went to, I was not going to go into debt. And then actually got a full ride to come here.
Bless up.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Which is like
Talk about his faithfulness.
Right. No, really. Like it was such
Yeah.
a God thing because I had applied to so many schools and I was like, I love IWU, but honestly, like, and everybody has a different journey, so really no judgment. But for me, I had clearly heard the Lord ask me not to go into debt, and so it was a clear avenue for me to come here. And truly, that's the reason I'm here. But over time, like I've just seen the Lord's hand in so many more other more important reasons than just the financial provision that I'm here. But that's what brings me to IWU. So
Yeah, give us a little rundown of what you where you're at here at IWU.
Yeah.
Your grade, whatever, what you do, all those
Yeah.
things. Because I know you're busy. So
Yeah, so I'm a senior here, Luther Lee Scholar, which is a part of the Honors College. So I'm double majoring in Honors Humanities and Community Development, which I've loved. And I'm a student body chaplain, working with the Spiritual Formation Office, which is such a gift. I really, really love working with the Spiritual Formation Office. And I've actually been in the office since freshman year because I auditioned NSO week to be on the worship team and then just have been around for 4 years. So it's super fun. So that's me.
I remember when I was first here coming in and we were freshmen at the same time.
Yeah.
We're in the same grade.
Yeah.
But when I was a freshman, I thought you were a senior. When we came in, she was singing. I was like, wow, incredible, like blessed, gift, all these things. And then you were back the next year. I was like, what
And
grade
the next
is
year.
What grade is she in? And then I went through the
year.
next
Is
one.
she a 6th year?
I was like, this girl has to be
Does
like
she keep
20.
flunking her grades?
COVID year?
And then
COVID
she's in
year?
honors college, and I'm like, you failing everything? But turns out you're the same age and been going through the whole time. I was like, wow. But no, like that's cool that you got that invested that fast.
Yeah.
And so like just seeing you at a leadership position in that way was just cool from the beginning, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, you're at Indiana Wesleyan, and I know you're heavily involved, but what is your calling story? I know it's the whole podcast, How to Write Coffee and Calling, but because you have you're jumping all over the place when you're growing up. So how did that also kind of form your calling and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, so I've been leading worship since I was 10.
Jeez.
And
Gifted.
I actually started leading worship when I was in Mexico City, and my mom was leading a women's conference the year before we were going to move back to the States. And I got to actually like lead a session at 10 years old, which is like, you know, that's a really cool opportunity. My mom is somebody who's always believed in me, and I'm really grateful for that. But she kind of started to open some of those doors for me to be kind of more, to share my gifts publicly. And actually the way I started singing was High School Musical. I don't know if you guys remember High School Musical.
Yes. Dude,
actually,
I wanted to be Zac. I
really
styled everything off him.
I never had like a girl crush on Zac Efron, ever. But I loved Gabriella because she sang. Is that her name? I think that's her name.
Yes.
But she sang, and we both had dark hair, and I was like, oh, she's so cute, whatever. So as a little kid, I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, started singing because I loved High School Musical. That's the honest truth. But then over time, I got more involved with the church and was able to kind of start leading in Hispanic spaces. And so leading worship for the Hispanic church has always been a really big part of my story. And then when we moved back to Indianapolis, we actually started attending a Hispanic church that met on Saturday nights. And one night I just like hopped on the stage after a set, and I was just like singing like a little kid, like, you know, how little kids like go up to the church to the drum set and like start banging on the drums after service or whatever. That was kind of like what I was doing, and started singing, and everybody like stopped and was like, who was singing? And they didn't realize. And it was the first time I remember being able to truly like feel like I was actually blessing the Lord and blessing other people with worship. And it wasn't really like, look at Maddie. It was like, oh, wow, like actually the Holy Spirit has gifted me with this voice.
Wow.
That's only from the Lord. And anyways, I started to really like get involved in leading worship. And then when I was 14, started leading at my church in Indianapolis, was a part of a house church, and then more like a traditional church. And when I was 14, the worship leader of the church that I'm currently at, Soma, he was like, hey, do you want to come audition? And he asked me how old I was. And I remember my mom dropped me off at like the first practice, and it was just a bunch of like mid 20-year-old guys. And they really didn't know I was 14. And they were all like, welcome, we're so glad to have you. Like, where did you graduate from? And I was like, I'm 14.
No
like,
way.
So, yeah.
No way.
And so I think I've looked older since I was 12. Like I've just kind of looked like this since I was really young. I don't know, just whatever. And so because of that, there's been an interesting, like, people have asked me to be a part of a lot of different things. Yeah. Which honestly has been a gift that I've loved. So, and then, just like leading worship for inner city, and then leading worship for, my family did a motel ministry for a really broken part of the city where we met every Sunday morning just leading worship. And then we did a ministry for the elderly where I led worship for an assisted living home. And it was so funny. Like people would be falling asleep in the middle of the song, like just like snoring, like John over here just can't hear, his hearing aids aren't working. So he's like, did you say something? Did you say something? Like, and then I remember one joke, there's a song called In the Garden, and it says, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I'm his own. But this guy was just the biggest jokester, like 87 years old, was skydiving on an annual basis, like still skydiving at 87.
No way. 87?
Yes. And he would, like, the whole song, he'd just be like, Andy. He would say, Andy talks with me. Andy, like, the name Andy.
So he's being...
The whole time.
Oh, my goodness.
He's just making fun of me. So anyways, it was this interesting mix for me leading worship, which is my calling, is to lead worship. But it was an interesting mix for me to be in, like, settings that were, like, more traditional, but then... honestly, like, my heartbeat for worship really was birthed out of a super non-traditional space, like the assisted living place and the motel and places where people aren't really applauding for you. Because it's not like a celebrity thing. It's just, like, thank you for worshiping. And, like, so.
Wow.
Yeah. Long story short.
That's incredible. What would you say, when you like lead worship, and you said you led for Hispanic churches and obviously with English and stuff like that, which one do you, if there's a preference, English or Spanish?
I definitely prefer Spanish.
Yeah?
I do.
Oh my goodness. When I was in Costa Rica, maybe I couldn't understand every single thing that they said or understand like the weight behind what they were saying sometimes. Yeah. Because it was different. But just the emotion that people had when they were singing. I remember I'll never forget this. When we were singing, what was it? There was one time when we were singing like Tengo hambre de ti. And I just remembered back to Costa Rica when I was singing in Spanish with them, and some guy behind me, old guy, crying, just Santo, Santo, Santo. And I always go back to that now. And so I just like Spanish worship. It's just beautiful to see worship in so many other languages, you know?
Yeah, it really is.
Wow, and to lead in it.
Woo! And you get to roll your R's on the stage, which is so fun.
Which is crazy because in Costa Rica, they can't.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
A lot of the Ticos can't roll their R's. And so when I was here talking to some of the guys on my tennis team, well, one guy now from Chile and then another friend from Honduras, they always make fun of like Costa Ricans because they're like, because they can't roll them. I was like, that's why I fit in, because I can't roll my R's.
That's so
but
funny.
wow,
man.
that's beautiful though.
You're a Tico at heart.
How humbling of an experience has it been coming to the point, because you said feeling called to lead worship at these places that really aren't desirable places, you know, assisted living homes, places where it's rough, you know, and you just get the realness of life and how hard it is. How humbling has that been? Because I know you've been given a lot of opportunities, and so opportunities will come with other churches, bigger churches, things like that. How has that been?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I read the gospel, I never see Jesus being super obsessed with like how many people are in the crowd. I think obviously the heart of the Father is that all men would come to know him, and his heart is that all people would be drawn to him. And yet when I see Jesus in the scripture, it seems like numbers in human perception is associated with like status and like power and like how many people are going to be here and how many people did I reach, how many people did I lead. And that's never Jesus's approach. His approach is always like to leave the 99 for the one. And it, right, like that's in tandem with like, so he wants all people to come to him. And yet he is so humble that like, it never really is about, look at me. It's about, just this humility of like reaching people and just being faithful in your faithful obedience. And so for me, like, I think, definitely I was the most amount of people that I've led for. And it's interesting, like, people at the motel and people at the assisted living place would never applaud, right? Like, it's just never, and here I get a lot of like, oh, you're so good at singing, you're so, and all hearts are like, that's born out of just a place to want to encourage. And so again, that's not like a judgment statement. It's more of like an observation of like, there's this interesting thing in Christian culture where, a lot of us just want to be noticed, if we're being honest. And that's it. It's okay to be honest about that and just to say like, you know what, I'm just really hungry to be noticed. But what my prayer has been for my ministry is that it wouldn't be about being noticed, but that it would be about just being faithful. And like, if there's one person that comes to chapel and is touched by my music and by my voice that the Lord has given me, then that's enough. And like, I was listening to this podcast. I'm a big podcast junkie, but I was listening to this podcast a few weeks ago, and this guy who's a worship leader, Jonathan Helser, he wrote the song "No Longer Slaves," and he was like wrestling with like, Lord, like, why did you give me this gifting of like singing, and you know, what do you want me to do with it? And when he was in his early 20s, he heard the Lord say, I just thought you would enjoy your voice. I just thought you would. I just gave it to you because I thought you would just enjoy it, and it wasn't like this like you're gonna you know. And so it's, I don't know, it's just an interesting, like, I just thought you would enjoy your voice. The
simplicity of it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you said that, because just to hear the simplicity of that, because that applies to all gifts then. Yeah. It can be like, Lord, why'd you give me the gift of tennis, athleticism, or different things, or speaking, whatever. Fun. And he's like, I just thought you would enjoy it and have fun with it, you know? And somebody told me, they were like, go out and play your sport. Go out and sing. Go out and do whatever the Lord has called you, has created you to do, gifted you to do, and do it for him and enjoy it. Yeah. Because when he watches you do what he created you to do, he loves it. Yeah. You know? And so just to, what was it? I watched this thing on Jon Bellion. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, love him.
Man is
He's
gifted.
amazing.
Oh my goodness. So he did this like COVID concert where it was all online and people sent in songs for him to do. And you could just, I've never seen someone be so in their gift and just really feel like the Lord is enjoying them doing that. Because God created him that way and he is living in it the fullest and he's just enjoying it, laughing, going crazy, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I can't help but see like the Father enjoying this, seeing that one of his children that he has created using the gift that he has for just enjoyment, you know, and to bring other people joy. It's nothing for like, obviously the Lord will use it to bring people to him, but the basics of it, just like, I just want you to know me and to enjoy me.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That was like a word I needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I overthink things all the time. I'm a notorious overthinker. Thank you. I said thank you. And I'm always like, okay, God, like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, you gave me this, or I have this passion, or I have this desire. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I'm always thinking, like, how can I do this or that or this and that? And it's refreshing to hear just like, oh, chill out. Just have fun. Like,
I'll never forget. I was Jordan Reif, who leads worship at College West. She mentored me last year, and she, I said, what advice would you give yourself if, like, for 20-year-old Jordan? Because she's, I think, about to turn 30 or in her 30s. And she was like, I would just tell myself, like, just chill out. It was like this moment of realization of like, oh man, like how much time am I trying to spend striving and like doing all these things for the Lord instead of just being with him. Wow. And then living from that overflow of being with him and just gazing at his beauty. And then, you know, I was on the same podcast I was just talking about, like, this guy was saying, when you live from a place of being, your doing will be way more than you could ever imagine. You're actually going to be so much more productive because you're living from a place of rest.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like the Shabbat, right? Like that's Sabbath. Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Like we're made to live from this place of rest, and it's a gift, and it's you know,
that just goes into show like the Lord has created stuff for us. You know, we are created for him, and he has created things for us. Like in the garden, we see that. And I remember just what you were talking about of like, just chill out and enjoy him, you know? Just simply being with him is enough. I remember when I was a couple years ago, I was in Dr. Lowe's class. Never cried in a class except this one. And
not Dave Smith's class?
Dave Smith, there was a couple times I was close. There was a couple times. When he starts crying, it gets me.
Oh, every time.
I'm a sympathetic crier, though.
Yeah.
So,
I could
like,
see
if
that
you start crying right now, I'm done.
Are you also a sympathetic laugher?
Yeah. I would say a lot of times I'll laugh when other people are laughing. I mean, my name means that. And so it's just it's in my being. Oh,
that's so beautiful.
You know? And to be sacrificed by my father. No, I'm just kidding.
What does your name mean?
Something to build an ark with animals.
It means rest.
Rest?
Wait, facts?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Noah means rest. My middle name's Michael, and Michael means who is like God.
Wow.
That's my middle name.
And I'm going to be honest, I'm horrible at resting. Like you talked about Sabbath, which is something I've been loving to do. I read a little bit of a book for class, and it was talking about self-care. And I always thought like taking time to rest and relax was like selfish. And in reality, it's holy.
Yeah.
And watching TV for 2 hours is holy. It's not something that's horrible. And it was just ironic. When I realized my name was meant to rest, I was like, man, I suck at that.
And that's
like how I run. Yeah. And it was just like that whole idea, like, chill out, bro. Like, just enjoy life. J.C. Herring one time said, life is too short not to have fun.
Yeah.
So have fun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's the culture that college has. Like, the college is like, well, what's next? When are you getting married? When are you doing this? What's your next assignment? Yada, yada, yada. You come to this, you come to that. Actually, no. Can I like meal prep and eat some food and like watch TV?
And I was going to say, it's interesting growing up in Mexico because like I remember, here's an example. There's a wedding. The bride was 5 hours late to the wedding. Oh. Nobody said a single thing. Nobody was confused.
It's her wedding.
Nobody was.
Wow.
That was so culture. Like, wow. You know what? Like time, it's like what is it? A day is like or 1,000 years is like a day.
Yeah, and a day for him is like like when it's talking about time for him, 1,000 years is like a day for him, but a day is also like 1,000 years for him.
Yes.
It does not.
He's not
not the same
by time.
Yeah.
And he always has an abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So I came from this place. I grew up, and even just my hardwiring as a kid growing up, the way I was like raised was just be with people. Like, just take time. And it was so much more about people than like having an agenda. And so even when I think about worship, it's the same for that. It's like, how do we just allow, how do we allow there to be like just so much space for people to encounter Jesus? Yeah, but like that, like, I love that your name means rest. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, and I think the idea of like being people oriented and not time or event like oriented, like we are time oriented. Yes, class starts here, class ends here, lunches, right? Like, I get that.
Sure.
But once again, JC Herring, he would skip class to do a devotional.
Yeah.
And I was like, never in a million years in the way I grew up, the way I was raised, would I have thought to like do that. Like, if the Lord was convicting me and I was having a moment with the Lord and I was like, oh, I have class, I would go to class. But then it kind of like switched my brain. I was like, what really matters? Yeah, of course, I need to turn this assignment. Sure. But what really matters? Am I going to prioritize, a conversation with Isaac about something he's struggling with? Or am I going to say, hey, actually, Isaac, I need you to put your problems on hold so I can finish my paper on rest, which is, you know what I mean?
And it's interesting that American culture truly is like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's this kind of rat race. My boyfriend and I were just talking about this. Like, it's this rat race of like, go, 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 constant, instead of like, man, like, how did Jesus live? And I was just in I go to church in Indy, and my pastor was talking about how actually, if you look at the way of Jesus, the way that he describes himself, first of all, is gentle and lowly.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you look even further, if you really examine like his posture toward life, my pastor was suggesting that his posture was relaxed.
Yeah.
Like, that Jesus is actually very relaxed. Like, he wasn't he wasn't like hustle man.
No way he could be.
Yeah.
Dude had to walk everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Imagine that with us. It's like,
Right.
oh yeah, how long will we get there? It's gonna be about a day or two travel. Like, could you imagine? He's going to Jerusalem. He's going to these places to do what he is called to do.
Yeah.
But he has to take 3 days to get to those places.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on in those?
Yeah.
And I remember one of my pastors talking about this, and he says, we have to be people with margins. You know, dude, like, the Lord has created you with a mind to organize and to like, almost like let your schedule be a worship, right? How you orient that.
Yeah.
But the problem is we've worshipped the schedule of just like,
oh, wow, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And that's me. That's
yeah,
you.
I'm guilty of it too.
Even if we don't like
That's right.
say we're not people of schedule
That's
and time,
right.
all those things, we still hold it
that.
so high.
Absolutely.
But the thing is that I'm learning is when you use this as a form of worship, because it shows where you put your time, right? What the Bible says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be.
Yes.
Treasures your time, your money, all your emotion, all those things. It's like there your heart will also be. So if you orient your schedule and build it in a way that glorifies God, your heart's gonna be there. And it was just nuts to me, because the culture that you're talking about and Jesus being all about people, dude, his ministry's interruptions. And so if we don't welcome interruptions, what's the ministry? You know, Jesus wants to interrupt your life. Jesus's life got interrupted.
Yeah.
And so if we don't have space for that to get interrupted, then everybody we meet is who we plan to meet. And we always talk about God give us opportunities. He's going to give you an opportunity, and it's going to shred your schedule. Favorite thing Dave Smith ever said to us when he left was, when you graduate from here and you want to talk to me, I will not have time. I will be busy. I will have all these things. But then he looked at us and said, but I will make time because you are worth it. And it was just letting us know, like, he's got these things going on, but he let us know that if you called and you needed something, I will make time. And such a powerful thing.
Beautiful.
And I bet Jesus could have made it faster to where he was going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I bet you he could have said, you know what? I'm not going to talk to you. let me get a camel or whatever, you know.
Let me get my Fitbit.
Yeah, let me.
How many steps can I get?
How many steps I got
Let me put my
today?
J's on and start running, you know what I mean?
Walking on water? Bet you ain't never done that. Peter, I know you did it. Sunk like a rock. There it is. I told you guys. There it is. There it is. Coffee and calling. The snort. All right. I got what I wanted today. I said it was my goal. Just happened. Continue.
It was the Jesus joke.
Oh my goodness.
I just bet you just could have gone there faster. If he really wanted to, he could have got there faster, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And that's the point, right?
Yeah.
Like, show me your schedule, and then I can tell you what your heart is or where your heart is. You know, like,
That's
if I
facts.
spend, X amount of time doing this, okay, then your heart is there. And something Ethan Linder said,
Love him.
future on the guest, future guest on the podcast.
He's phenomenal.
But he mentioned, like, do what you want to do. And I was like, what? Why would I do what I want to do? Like, it's such a, it was, I was like, why would you say that? But, like, do what you want to do. Don't do what you don't want to do. Like, whatever drains you, maybe don't do that. Like, yeah, I know it's sacrificing to do that, but if you don't want to have coffee with that person because it's a horrible conversation or
it's just like nothing.
Right. Or it's just a meaningless conversation, then don't do it. You have better things to do.
Yeah.
Of course, don't avoid a hard conversation because you need to do that.
Yeah.
But he was like, do what you want to do. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah.
that blew my mind.
Yeah.
So I grew up with parents. So my mom didn't come to the Lord until she was in her early 20s. And because of that, she just has the whole, like, getting rid of tradition and religion. Like, she never had to do that because she just met Jesus.
Yeah.
It
That's
wasn't
awesome.
like this kind of hardwiring of, like, the rules and the legalism. It was just very much so, like, just what's the heart of Jesus. And my dad is also, like, very, they're amazing. I just really am grateful for the parents I have. But basically, the way I grew up was anything can be interrupted. Like, we always had kids in our house.
That's
we always
awesome.
had, and it was, and my mom would never, like, be embarrassed about, like, really anything or, like, apologize if she was late. It was like, oh, thank you so much for being patient with me. Like, I was sitting with this other person.
Wow.
And she was never, like, careless about the way that she cared for people. But she definitely, like, even, like, ministry for my family has looked a lot like, hey, do you want, like, if a person asks me to be their mentor, or if somebody went to my mom and dad and was like, can you mentor us? Like, can you be our marriage mentors or whatever? It was always like, yeah, like, you want to come grab groceries? Like, let's go, like, let's do
That's
like
awesome.
actually doing shoulder to shoulder, and not so, like, coffee, like, I love coffee. I just said that on the podcast, but you know
We
what I
know.
mean? Not like, so sterile or, like, scheduled.
Yeah.
It was just very much so, like, and that's how most of the world actually operates. America is kind of an anomaly in that way. Like, most of the world
That's true.
operates differently.
No, that's very true.
Right?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, like, all the guys that were on my tennis team, they always talk about, like, everybody, like, in Spain, Argentina, all these places, there was, like, a set, not like a law made, but everybody knew the certain hours was, like, nap time.
Oh yeah.
Or, like, in Costa Rica, like, cafecito. And at the
yeah.
night, it's like after dinner or before dinner, depends on when your family did it. It's like bread and coffee.
Yeah.
And you just chill. Like, you do nothing except that. And so, like, that stuff is just so beautiful. And I'm curious with you, and I think we can know the answer, but I want to know from you, with your parents, when that was their mindset, like, how did you feel as their child?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
The word I would say that marked my childhood was permission. Like, I just had permission to, first of all, like, and anything that I say is not a judgment. It's more like, this is just, but, like, I never went to youth group, in part because my parents wanted me to be with them, and they wanted me to know that my siblings and I were never an interruption, to, like, what was happening in adult world. Like, it was never, like, an inconvenience to have us around.
Yeah. And
And so I think and then just being invited into that, and it was, I mean, oh yeah, it was so chaotic. Like, it was a lot of chaos. So chaotic. Which it really plays a part into who I am today. And that's frustrating for a lot of people, and that's okay. Everybody's different, but yeah, that's kind of how, like, I grew up, is just permission to be involved, to ask questions, to experiment, to, like, to dream beyond, like, what, society says is okay, and yeah.
That's so good. That is so good.
So going along that, what question you asked Jordan? What advice would you give to 20-year-old self?
Aha. Flipped it on you.
What would you say to yourself 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or someone that's before coming to college?
Let's
or
say 5.
in high school?
Let's say 5.
Okay. I would say, there's a.
I'm such a jerk. 10 years. Yeah, when she's 11 years old, man. Just messing with you. All right, 5 years ago.
Hey, when she was 11, she still looked like she was 20. That's what she said.
True. That's what.
That's facts.
I went to the airport once. I was 11. I was in the TSA, and the guy was like, "Can I see your ID?" I was 11. I was like, "Mom, what's an ID?" Anyways, I would say the sooner you can let go of what people think, the better.
Wow. How has that played out in your life? I know like the stereotype just with like worship leaders. When you are on stage, you guys will get it the most.
Yeah.
You know, you and other people that speak, anybody on stage, just how you worship, your body language, all those things. Yeah. How have you had to deal with that?
I remember freshman year of college, I was pulled into a meeting, and somebody was like, "We really don't like the way that you move on stage." Oh my gosh. And I don't know who the person was. This was like a comment. I never knew like who the actual original like person was who had brought this concern. And I just was so confused. I think I was just like, like that's, and I remember like for maybe like 20 minutes being really wrapped up in it and like, oh no, like, am I doing something wrong? Is there something, is there something bad with me? I also had a really, really innocent childhood. So like I wasn't exposed to a lot of like things of the world. And I'm really grateful for that. So like my heart posture was never like, to be like, look at me, or it just was so strange to receive that kind of feedback. So I think I was like, oh man, like I don't know what to do with that. And then, and right, like leaders are called to a higher standard. There's a level of like, we need to, there's, there are things that the Lord calls us to behave rightly in. But on the same hand, like when it's a matter of preference, that's when it's like, oh man, like we can't let other people's preferences of what we should do or what we should be, how we should be acting, control how the Lord is asking us to lead. And the freedom that he's asking us to, and a lot of people are not free. That's just the truth. And a lot of people, and everybody can be free. That's the good news. But I do see like the feedback that I've had to wrestle with, from people, specifically by being a worship leader is, why are you like dancing on stage, or why are you, why can't we just sing like normal songs, or like things like that, where it's like, oh, like the sooner I learned to let go of that and just to be like, oh, like, bless you. Like, yes, that's great. How you want to do it? Like you can, and not like in a rude way, but just like,
but
there, you can.
You're telling me what to do. How
it's almost like an invitation. It's like,
like,
oh, you got ideas?
Sure.
You want to like help lead us? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow,
not
that's
like, not like a like, you want to do it, but like
you handle that so much more beautifully than I would, because people have said stuff to me before, and like I don't know, I grew up a little different. Like, praise God for how I grew up, you know. But it wasn't like a like super innocent where I was like, no one knows. Sure. I'm fine with confrontation. Yeah. I'm totally fine with it. Yeah. And so like my gut reaction is to, let me destroy you in an argument of why I do what I do. Like that's where my head goes.
Yeah.
But like, praise God that like he worked in you like through your childhood. So when you do face this, because that's just what's gonna happen.
Yes.
You know.
And you have to like, if I actually think I wasted a lot of time freshman, sophomore year thinking about what other people thought of me. I really do. And more recently, the Lord has freed me from that.
Praise the Lord.
One of my favorite authors in the whole world is Brene Brown, and she has a few things that I especially love. But one of the things is wholehearted living guideposts. So she talks. She's this researcher and kind of does research on like human connection and how humans operate. And one of the most fascinating things that she says is like letting go of like what people think really is like a game changer for our lives. Because if we let go of what people think, like we're released to be the freest and truest version of ourselves. Especially when we're believers, like the Lord has called us to be these kinds of people that are really set apart. Yeah. But when we allow other people's opinions to kind of pile on top of that, it really can quench the spirit in us, and it really can like kind of minimize the room that we have for the Lord to make us into who we're created to be. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a far-fetched, but
that makes so much sense. And thank you so much for like sharing all that. Yeah. Because I was curious how that was playing out. But yeah, seeing the Lord's faithfulness in that, and seeing that him work through that and working through those people as well, you know, and on all aspects.
And now I'm actually seeing the opposite, where I'm seeing people come up and be like, thank you for like moving the way that you do on stage. For like, one person who was a Latino on campus was like, actually, like, I can't even tell you how much that meant to me that you sang that song and that you were able to, you know, like move on stage in a way that is like glorifying to the Lord, that is like freedom in his presence. That's like, you know, this is not a show. This is just genuine, like.
And that may be
freedom.
like when you focus on the negative, you see that more than you see the positive.
Yes.
Right? Like I'm the opposite of Isaac. I'm a pushover when it comes to people's opinions. Like I'm like, yeah, sure, you're right. I don't even care. Like I'd rather just have that non-tension than. But Isaac's taught me how to like stand up. Like, hey, this is what you believe. Yeah, well. Exactly. But it's real. Like when you get feedback for anything, you always see the negative first and louder, and you see the positive, and that's just awesome. Like you get to celebrate all of the positives from the gift that you have that you get to just enjoy, and now other people get to help you enjoy that. Yeah.
And my best friend asked me the question. She was like, how would you describe your worship leading? Like, what's your, like, we think of different worship leaders, we think of like a word. So like when I say, you know, Kim Walker-Smith, maybe I think of the word power. When I think of, you know, Tasha Cobbs, same, power. Like there's different words that we associate with different worship leaders. The word for me is freedom. And and that's what my heart is longing for, and what I know that people are all around us are longing for as well, you know.
Yeah. Wow, praise God for that. Praise God for that. Man, Maddie, thank you so much. This has been so fun. There's like so much more that I would love to talk about. Yeah, absolutely. But you know, as it is, we can't talk about everything. If we wanted to go into some of that stuff, it would take a whole other one. Maybe that would come.
Maybe part two.
Maybe part two. We'll see. But
thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for listening and just living this freedom that Maddie has talked about. Go and be blessed.
See ya.
Adios. Yay!